Hello all, this is Reading and Reflecting on Text, Module 4, Reading the Text and Reading Comprehension, Part 2, Week 4. Topic is Practicing Responses to Text. Now, we arrive at this point where we start responding to text. How to respond to a text. And we have to practice it. Structured opportunity for expressive language use that is grounded in meaningful, authentic text. So, practicing responses to text is actually not an arbitrary thing. We cannot just read and give our response to it. But to have a proper response, the reader has to practice how to give response. And what is the criteria of responding? Structured opportunity for expressive language use. It can be speaking or writing, but that should be in a structured form. And it is grounded in meaningful, authentic text. So when we are asking students to make a response, we should also ensure that text is meaningful and authentic. Response hones critical thinking skills and ability to express thoughts. This is why it is not an arbitrary matter. Responses should be in such a way that it hones critical thinking skill. The reader must think critically and should be able to express their thought, which must be on the basis of evidences. Nature and purpose. One element of culturally responsive practice is promoting critical consciousness. Now, responding to a text is critical conscious related issue and the response is culturally rich. It is not an individual separate entity, but the whole material, environment, idea and individual, everything, this whole environment is embedded culturally, and that response should be on the basis of critical consciousness. How to attain it? We will go through that steps. Beyond simply understanding a text, critical reading involves noticing, discussing, and critiquing issues. What issues? There are issues hidden in text about maybe of power, maybe privilege, maybe other culturally rich elements or socially important issues. The reader must notice, discuss and critique. Only then those hidden issues like power and privileges are reflected on their responses through the text. That is why it is said, beyond simply understanding a text, critical reading involves noticing, discussing and critiquing issues such as power and privilege as they are reflected in a text. This is to engage students in meaningful and informed writing. A student is not an empty vessel. The student is a participatory entity, and students should get engaged in this process to have a meaningful and informed writing. Types of responses. As reading is not about grammar but addresses multiple educational goals, so there are different kind of responses. It may be personal, it may be creative or critical. We should discuss these in a short form. Instrumental literacy is made up of these proficiencies one needs in order to be able to access a text and how it affects a reader. So, only reading won't help in making literacy functional, instrumental. But when a reader is able to respond in all these forms, in personal way, in creative way, in critical way, then literacy becomes functional, instrumental. Let's discuss a little bit about personal response. Personal response can be practiced using forms like short stories, letter, screenplay, speech, anecdote, etc. These forms or formats helps readers to make a personal response. You read a letter, you read a speech, anecdote, and you can relate to that, and that helps you to make a personal response. Personal response involves almost same format, but element of response is highly subjective. Here you are asked to express your own view. You are not asked to remember or recognize other person's view. It is about what is your take. Main focus is on what the text telling us personally. Creative responses with novelty, free and spontaneous environment. Because you are understanding the text, you are critiquing a text, and you are making a new narrative, a new response, something novel. And this can only happen in a free and spontaneous environment. One must practice skills of complex and divergent thinking. Of course, creative response can only be triggered when you can express your skills of complex thinking and divergent thinking. A full grasp on text is prerequisite for creative responses. If you don't know the text properly, if you haven't read each and every word which are meaningful to the text, if you haven't understood the in-between lines, then how can you make a creative response? That is why you should have a full grasp on the text. Asking in-depth questions on text to find new answers is fundamental, because that is what novelty is. You are asked to express your view, but which is novel. So, in-depth questions can trigger that side of yours where you will make a novel idea or maybe create something new, maybe a new text even. Now, critical response. Analysis for critical thinking requires imitation, manipulation, and interpretation on text. So, you are invested in text and you are critiquing it. So, you have to have full control on text. To be able to critique, you should know the text thoroughly. That is why you should use imitation, manipulation, and interpretation on text. Arriving at statement of meaning is necessary. To have a complete understanding, you should be able to narrow it down. We can narrow it down when we have full grasp on the text or actually anything. Right? So, arriving at statement of meaning is necessary. What is that one statement which holds up? Reader has to think like writer or creator to respond critically. Because you are putting your foot in his or her shoes. You are stating that this text is this, and this is what weakness is, this is what strength is, and you are evaluating and criticizing it. So you should think like a writer or creator. Interaction and questioning are mandatory tools for critical responses. Without interaction and questioning, you cannot arrive at critical response. This interaction and questioning is with the text too. You should think that text like a separate living entity and start to break it down and criticize it thoroughly. This interaction and questionings are mandatory tools for critical response. Criteria for students to practice responses. Does the lesson use high quality, culturally relevant, complex text and text sets that are rich in academic language and promote critical thinking? So when we are making the student to make a response and practice response, we should give them such text which enables them to show their complete potential. Does instruction give all students equitable access to grade level text, tasks, and experiences, as well as the supports they need to meet high expectation? This is very important. Just to distribute equally is not enough. You have to practice equity here. Does instruction give all students equitable access? That is very important. How are students encouraged to notice, discuss, and critique text and topics through a socio-political lens to help advance students' thinking and actions about issues of identity, equity, power, or oppression? Only arriving to these kind of critical thinking will have a full use of a student's power of responding to the text. So issues of identity, equity, power, or oppression, these kind of issues must be addressed while responding to the text. Strategies. Read to understand. Very simple. Observe or read the piece for an initial understanding. Observing and reading the piece for initial understanding leads you to reading for complete understanding. So you must be observant. Just mechanical reading won't do. Record your thoughts and impressions in notes. Very, very important, especially for students. In various kind of forms, in various kind of subjects, faculties, they should make notes. Only then they can understand those particular requirements of each subjects and faculties, and they can give a response, a proper response to that. Develop a collection of thoughts and insights from. Write an outline. This is when you got a grasp on that, right? So only then you can identify the outline. Construct your essay. This is when you have a little bit of mastery and you can construct your own essay. And this will give such confidence and this will make the educational goal success. Composing the response. Step 1. A response expresses a reaction to a text, generally to what it says, how it is written, how it influences your own thinking, and demonstrates involvement with the text. Step 2. In this situation, critical reading can be particularly useful since the technique calls for analysis and evaluation of a text using a careful and detailed approach. So, when you have to give a response and you have to use your own thinking and demonstrate your involvement, in this situation, you have to use certain techniques like analysis and evaluations for a careful and detailed approach. Step 3. Engage in analysis and evaluation when asked to do any of the following in a response. Comment on the strengths and weaknesses of a text. The quality of evidence used to support ideas in a text. The link between ideas expressed in multiple texts. The association between the text and your own experiences, practices, or thoughts. So this is how you engage in analysis and evaluation when you are asked to give a response. Thank you.